Hi, I'm Seamless, and today is Friday, and it actually is still Friday, and I remembered that I should be making a how to bass. And today I'm going to show you how to make this sound. For those of you who have been following me on my live stream, I already know how to do this, but I'm going to show it to you for the rest of you on the universe who didn't follow me on the streams. Those are all the same sound, which I mean they should all sound similar to you. And like I kind of had them in this track. Like I'm not actually working. This is not a track I'm doing, but like it was a reasonable proof of concept at the time. Neat stuff. Now, this is if you follow any of my videos before, then you should recognize this as being a pretty common sort of vocodery thing. I have a preview of done this in the actual mixer, which is a little bit odd for me. The thing about this particular sound that is different than usual is what I'm using as the modulator. Normally, I try to get that kind of like that crunchy sort of thin sound that comes from, you know, that teethy kind of sound in the carrier, and then I use the modulator to kind of accentuate that with higher, lower notes, that kind of thing. This time around, I'm actually doing all of that in the modulator, despite this note being whatever it is. And to create a good time. The one behind it is a separate sub to try and follow together, which I didn't, move with it. To make what I have here, I've created this sound. Which is what I described as what I normally do, which is a sharper vocoder carrier that's vocoder and whatever. It almost doesn't matter what this sound is. Like, if you want to know how to make this sound, go to any of my other vocoded how to bass videos. The reason why it doesn't matter is because what I did do it eventually became the modulator. And that is granulizing. So what I did is I recorded with that little 4-bar moment out, put it in the granulizer, engaged looping, and I am automating. I'm automating the main pitch set up to 48. Am I automating attack? No, just hold time, grain spacing, and wave spacing. These 3 knobs. And I am kind of being random about it. I am doing a little bit different for each particular thing. Pitch and wave spacing belong in a particular class where 0 is actually the center. So in the center of pitch is your original pitch, and then you have higher pitch and then lower pitch. And the center of wave spacing is no movement, and then forward up to 75% is 100% speed, and then 100% is 200% speed. 50% or 25% is negative 100% speed, and then negative 100% is negative 200% speed. So that's you gotta consider what that parameter does before you create whatever shape you're creating for it. Hold time is how long it'll hold each individual grain, so like how long a grain is, and then the grain spacing is how long in between each grain, or how long before plays the next grain. So playing with them sort of creates a different kinds of delayed versus togethery kind of feeling could feel the business. And, you know, you can have a reasonable understanding of what the parameters do, but you could also just spam weird random points and get weird random shit. Because I'm not 100%, you know, on to what I'm doing. I'm not, like, looking for something very specific. I'm looking for a mess. And boy, did I get one. Once I've got the mess, I created a pretty regular sound for the carrier for the space. Actually, that might be this sound. Something like it. It's a FM sound. Yeah. Okay. So we have this interesting harmonic triangle wave. It was originally a triangle wave, and then I put in these harmonics. That's modulating. It's also modulating at an octave higher than usual. So ratio 4 to ratio 2 makes it an octave higher than ratio 2. It's not all the way up though, and the mod is all the way, but this is not all the way up. And then I'm modulating 2 by 3. 3 is almost a saw wave, and it is being also an octave higher than, you know, it was 2. Then the ratio 2 for operator 1. This together creates. Which by itself was kind of an okay sound, but really I just wanted to create a kind of a vague modulation beneath what the modulator itself was going to do to the sound. Now, what was interesting about this is that how the modulator behaves on top of this is actually not at all what I expect would happen. What I thought would happen is that because the teeth, you know, in a sound like this, are not going to be oscillating quite with the pitch of the sound, that it would actually be it would be a problem, that it would actually conflict in ways that wouldn't be good. But as it turns out, no, it actually just sounds kind of cool. Not every kind of sound works in terms of just the carrier. This particular one I also pitched up an octave. Some of these I cloned and made unique and did weird things to them, like time stretched or pitched up and down, that kind of thing. But like most of the kinds of sound design that I like to do, you got to experiment with what you got to experiment with what gets you the results you want. But what I was not at all expecting was for the note that you choose to be beneath the modulator that isn't really in sync with the granulized separation actually still comes out. That was like the Zomboy remix of the NPR theme right there. So for me, anyway, this is actually a pretty big revelation in the sense of like what a modulator can do to a carrier and still actually work as a sound. So that was what was cool about that's the main takeaway about all this, is that use weirder shit for your modulators and you'll get something cool. As far as what the actual Vocodex is doing, another thing that I experimented with was lower band counts. Right now I'm using 23 bands. I'm not doing a huge amount. Like the pitch is actually kind of still where it is, but I am doing a little bit of what's going on here. And the main pitch changes and the sort of tone changes, I'm getting actually more out of what the modulator is doing, and less with messing with it inside the Vocodex. With the exception of sort of what I'm doing with bandwidth, where I have lower bandwidth for lower values. Which is just something I said by ear. Wasn't really much to do with that. But that there are less bands actually created less problems. Because if I had a normal amount of bands, it starts to get that kind of cavey, almost vocoded sound. And you remove that a little bit if you just reduce. You know, there's obviously a sweet spot for that kind of thing, but it's interesting to experiment with different values that I'm used to, because I'm used to doing as high as a value as I can, which may have resulted in a lot of my sounds sounding samey in that regard. I don't have a project for you for this because I have some plans for this specific sound, but I believe I've given you enough that you can, you know, sort of approximate this yourself. You're probably not going to get exactly this sound, but then again, I don't think I would get exactly this sound even if I were trying to do it again. Just because every time you do any kind of this startup bit, like, you know, what sound you start with here, what animations you use here, what settings you use, you know, and that kind of thing are going to get net you interesting and different results, which are kind of the point, that you get something interesting and new. These are recorded versions of the sound. That was very Transformers-y, wasn't it? Yeah. So if you have any questions about any of this, let me know. And as usual, have a nice day.